When God knows you're ready, you don't get a warning. You don't get a countdown down. You just look up one random Friday and realize the video that was supposed to find you finally found you. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Because if you clicked on this, if something pulled you in this exact second, it's not random. It's not luck. It's not the algorithm being nice to you today. It's timing. It's God's timing. Here's the part that's going to change how you see the last few months of your life. You are ready. Not getting ready, not almost ready. You are ready right now, in this moment. And something big is already in motion because of it. Stay with me, because I'm about to walk you through exactly why this is happening and exactly what it means. And by the end of this, you are going to feel it in your chest, not just hear it in your ears. I know it feels like you've been stuck in a waiting room, but God was actually in the back getting your blessing ready. You've been asking when, but God was focused on who you are becoming while you wait. Think of this as your training montage before the big win. All those quiet mornings, all those invisible sacrifices, all those moments nobody clapped for, that was your montage. That was the part of the movie they don't show in the trailer. But it is the part of that makes the victory actually mean something. I need you to understand something. Your life is not going to look the way it used to look. It's not going to feel the way it used to feel. And I don't say that lightly, because I know some of you have heard promises like that before and nothing changed. But this is different. And I'll tell you why in a second. First, I need you to sit with this. The work you've been doing behind the scenes, the stuff nobody claps for, the stuff nobody even knows about, none of it was for nothing. Not one tear, not one sleepless night, not one moment where you sat in your car in a parking lot just trying to breathe. None of it was wasted. It was preparation. And preparation always looks like struggle right up until the moment it starts looking like a miracle. Think about who you were a year ago, 2 years ago. Maybe you don't even like to think about that version of you, because that version was tired in a way that's hard to explain to people who never felt it. That version smiled in photos and felt like a stranger behind their own eyes. That version said, "I'm fine." So many times it almost became true just from repetition. And somewhere in the middle of all of that exhaustion, something shifted. You didn't announce it. There was no big speech, no dramatic turning point, no lightning bolt moment where the music swelled and everything suddenly made sense. It was quieter than that. It usually is, actually. Readiness rarely shows up loud. It shows up as exhaustion that finally has nowhere left to hide. You got tired of your own patterns. tired of having the same argument with yourself at 2 in the morning, tired of watching your own life happen to you instead of through you. And that tiredness wasn't weakness. That tiredness was your spirit finally saying enough. That's when the shift starts, not because the world changed everything overnight, but because you stopped pretending you were okay staying exactly where you were. If he gave it to you sooner, it might have crushed you. He wanted you to wait because he loves you too much to let you fail. Imagine God has been crafting a massive, intricate key for you in secret. You've been standing in front of a giant locked door for a long time, exhausted from trying to push it open with your own strength. You thought you were ready a year ago, but your hands were not strong enough to turn the key, and your heart wasn't ready, steady enough, actually, to handle what's behind the door. Now the key, your preparation, your growth, finally matches the lock. God's timing. When God knows you're ready, He doesn't just open the door. He gives you the strength to walk through it without losing yourself. It's not about the door opening. It's about you becoming the person who can handle the room inside. You stopped making peace with things that were quietly killing something inside you, someone inside you. You stopped calling mediocrity being realistic. You stopped calling settling being mature. You started separating yourself from people and situations and habits that were not going where you are going. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That friendship that always left you drained instead of full. That relationship that made you feel like you needed permission to exist. That job, that routine, that voice in your head that had been running the show for way too long, telling you who you were allowed to be. You looked at all of it, and something in you said, I cannot do this anymore. Not out of anger, out of clarity. And clarity is different from frustration. Frustration wants to fight. Clarity just quietly walks away. And here is what nobody tells you about that walking away. It's lonely at first. Yeah, it's really lonely at first, because when you start changing, the people around you do not always change with you. Some of them get uncomfortable, some of them get distant, some of them get downright strange, like your growth is somehow an insult to their comfort. And that's not your fault, and it's not your problem to fix. People who knew the old version of you sometimes cannot come with you to the next version. And that's okay. That's not betrayal. That's just the natural cost of moving forward. You didn't lose them out of cruelty. You lost them because you cannot carry someone else's comfort zone on your back while you're trying to climb. You are not just next in line. You are being hand-picked for something specific. This isn't a coincidence that you are watching this right now. This is your 11th our confirmation. God is about to do a new thing in your life, and it's going to make all of the quiet years make sense. You've been faithful in the small stuff, so get ready for the big move. Stop looking at the closed doors behind you. The one opening in front of you is massive. Your suddenly is closer than you think. He's not just answering your prayer. He's exceeding your expectations. I can feel it in my spirit, in my chest. The shift you've been praying for is happening this week. Now there is the peace that changes everything, the peace that connects directly back to what this whole thing is about. God doesn't rush people into their breakthrough before they can carry it. Think about that for a second. Have you ever gotten something before you were ready for it? And instead of feeling grateful, you sabotaged it, maybe without even meaning to. That's what happens when readiness and blessing don't match up. So God waits, not because He is withholding, not because you are being punished, but because timing protects you. It protects the very thing He's about to give you. And the fact that you're only now getting to this moment, the fact that it took this long, means the capacity inside you has finally caught up to the size of what's coming. That's not a delay. That's mercy wearing a disguise. Let's talk about what readiness actually feels like, because it's almost never what people expect. Nobody wakes up one morning with total confidence, a 5-year plan, and zero fear. No, that's not readiness. That's fantasy. Real readiness feels like moving even though you're scared. It feels like making a decision with incomplete information because you finally understood that waiting for total certainty is just a polished way of hiding. It feels like choosing discomfort over the dull ache of staying the same. It feels like realizing that the safe life you built has actually been quietly suffocating the person you were meant to become. And that person, the one waiting on the other side of your fear, has been patient with you, not judging you, not rushing you, just waiting for you to get tired enough of your own excuses to finally walk toward them. And so take a deep breath. The struggle is over and the heavy harvest is here. You've been through the fire and you didn't even come out smelling like smoke. So God is about to restore everything the waiting tried to steal from you. It's okay to be excited. This is the breakthrough you've been crying for. Don't try to figure out how He will do it. Just trust that He has already done it. You are stepping into a season of ease. No more grinding, no more flowing. If you can see it in your heart, God can put it in your hand. You've been getting signals for a long time, small ones, random flashes of clarity in the shower, in the car, right before falling asleep, where for a second everything made sense and you thought, I could actually do this. Whispers of intuition you kept explaining away as unrealistic or too big or not the right time. But now those whispers are getting louder, not because they got louder on their own, because you finally stopped covering your ears. You are starting to notice patterns that were always there, doors that were always cracked open, invitations that were always on the table, but you were too tired, too distracted, too busy surviving to see them. That's changing. Your eyes are adjusting to a light you forgot you were capable of standing in. And here is something important. The universe, God, tests readiness before He rewards it. He doesn't hand you the big thing first. He gives you small opportunities to practice being the person you say you want to become. A moment to choose discipline instead of comfort. A moment to say no to something that used to be automatic yes. A moment to take responsibility for your own energy instead of blaming your circumstances. That's uncomfortable. Most people miss these tests completely because they are staring at the horizon waiting for something dramatic, some obvious neon sign, while the real test was sitting quietly right in front of them the whole time, disguised as an ordinary Friday. But you've been passing those tests, maybe without even realizing it. Every time you chose growth over comfort, even in some tiny invisible way, you were building the exact readiness that's about to be rewarded. Let me bring you into something specific, something real, so this doesn't just stay abstract. Picture this. You are sitting somewhere quiet, maybe at your kitchen table, maybe in your car before you go inside somewhere. And for a few seconds, your mind goes still. Not empty, just still. And in that stillness, you feel it. That thing underneath everything, that pull, that appetite for something more than what you've been settling for. And then almost instantly, the old voice creeps back in, like, who do you think you are? That's not realistic for someone like you. Remember what happened last time you wanted something out loud. And that voice used to win for years. For years, that voice won every single time. But something different now. You are starting to notice the voice instead of obeying it automatically. And noticing a lie is the very first step to it losing its power over you. Here is the deeper truth hiding underneath all of that. You didn't shrink yourself because you were weak. You shrank yourself because at some point being fully seen came with a price you were not ready to pay. Someone, somewhere taught you through their words, their silence, their disappointment, their absence, that taking up space was dangerous. So you made a quiet, unconscious deal with yourself. You'd stay small so other people could feel comfortable. You'd stay quiet so nobody would have to deal with your fullness. That deal made sense at that time, yeah. It kept you safe when safety was hard to come by. But that deal is expiring right now. Because the danger that made shrinking necessary back then, it's not here anymore. You're not who you were when you signed that deal. You are not in the same room, the same relationship, the same circumstance that taught you to disappear. The rules changed. You just haven't updated the file yet. This video is that update. Think of it like a light that's been dimmed for years, not broken, just turned away down low because turning it up used to cause problems. That light never went out. It's been waiting, flickering in quiet moments, in the car alone, in the shower, in the half second right before you fall asleep, when you're alone, reminding you it's still here, it's still, there. And here is the part that matters most. The moment you ever acknowledge that light again, not force it, not perform it, just acknowledge it exists, something inside you shifts. That's not wishful thinking, that's recognition. That's the most authentic version of you finally saying hi, hello, from across a distance you've been keeping on purpose. Now let's talk about what's actually coming, because everything is about to change. Can sound like an empty phrase if I don't ground it in something real. What's coming is alignment. What's coming is doors opening that you stopped even knocking on because you assumed they were locked. What's coming is people showing up who don't need you small to feel comfortable around you. People who actually celebrate you getting bigger instead of resenting it. What's coming is opportunities landing in your lap that you didn't manufacture through hustle or desperation, because you finally stopped sending mixed signals. For a long time, you wanted one thing while acting like another. You said you wanted more, but you kept choosing the safe, familiar, smaller option every single time it mattered. This mismatch is exactly what kept things stuck. But now your thoughts, your decisions, your energy, they are finally pointing the same direction. And when everything inside you finally agrees with itself, the outside world has no choice but to start rearranging around that agreement. I also want to be honest with you about something, because I'm not here to to feed you comfort that doesn't hold up. This next season, even though it's good, it's not going to feel entirely comfortable. Growth rarely does. As you keep moving forward, some relationships are going to feel different. Some conversations that used to feel normal are going to start feeling unbearable. Some people you used to seek approval from are suddenly going to seem small, afraid, stuck in a version of life you already outgrew. That's not you becoming arrogant. That's you finally seeing clarity. And there might be a stretch, a season where it feels almost lonely. Not because you are isolated, but because you are awake in a world where a lot of people are still asleep. That loneliness isn't punishment, it's purification. It's your life quietly clearing out everything that no longer matches the frequency you are growing into. And on the other side of that quiet season, different people start showing up. The kind who are not threatened by your growth, the kind who don't need you to stay small to feel secure around you, the kind who actually celebrate your evolution instead of quietly resenting it. Here's something else I want you to really let land. Every disappointment that didn't break you, every time you got back up when you desperately wanted to stay down, every moment you tried again when logic was practically begging you to quit, none of that was wasted. All of it was building something. Not hope exactly, not just optimism, something deeper than that, something closer to steadiness, the kind of steadiness that doesn't need a pep talk or somebody else's approval to keep functioning, the kind that just quietly knows deep in the body that it can handle whatever shows up next. You already have that. It's already inside you. It's been forming this entire time while you thought you were just surviving. Let's go back to the title for a second because I want you to really feel the weight of it. When God knows you're ready, you will see this video. Think about how specific that is. Not if you are ready, not maybe you are ready, when. That word is doing all the work. It means this moment isn't random. And it means the timing has already been decided by something bigger than the algorithm, bigger than coincidence, bigger than whatever brought you to click on this in the first place. Something inside you crossed a line without asking permission, a line between wanting change and actually being ready to hold it. And that shift matters more than people realize. Because wanting is passive. Wanting lets you daydream about a different life without doing anything uncomfortable to get there. Readiness is different. Readiness is active. Readiness means you've run out of excuses and staying the same finally started hurting worse than changing does. That's the state you are in right now. Not almost there. There. And that's exactly why this is landing the way it's landing. Because if you are not ready, these words would just slide right off you like every other video you scrolled past this week. But something about you, about this one, is sticking. Something about this one feels personal, feels timed, feels like it's speaking directly into a room only you are standing in. That's not an accident. That's confirmation. I want you to think about everything you've released and over the past however long, the toxic patterns, the draining people, the vices, the habits that quietly kept you numb, the relationships that cost you more peace than they ever gave back. You didn't do that because you were perfect. you did it because you finally chose yourself in ways you were not strong enough to choose before. And I need you to hear this clearly. That work is the reason the door is opening now, not despite it. Nothing you sacrificed was wasted. Every no you said to something small was actually a yes to something bigger that hadn't showed its face yet. You've also started changing how you interpret hard situations. And this matters more than people give it credit for. Instead of falling apart every time something didn't go your way, you started asking what it was trying to teach you. Instead of assuming every closed doors meant you were being punished, you started trusting that it was redirecting you towards something better suited for who you are becoming. That shift in perspective, that willingness to look for the lesson instead of just the pain, is exactly the posture that invites bigger things in. Difficulty stopped being proof that you were failing and started becoming proof that you were being refined. Here's the truth that a lot of people are too scared to say out loud. You deserve what's coming. Not because deserving is about being flawless, but because deserving is about capacity, about becoming someone who can actually hold what they are asking for without falling apart under the weight of it. Getting something before you are ready to carry it is exactly how people end up sabotaging their own blessings. Deep down, they don't believe they belong there yet, so they quietly dismantle it before anyone else can. But you've done the internal work. You faced things you didn't want to face. You sat with feelings you used to run from. You stopped pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. That's not small. That's exactly what capacity is built from. And once that capacity is built, everything about how you move through the world starts to change without you forcing it. You stop performing, you stop pretending, you start just being clear-eyed, steady, present. You start making decisions from a place of peace instead of panic. You start building instead of just consuming everyone else's life on a screen. And you start creating instead of complaining. And people notice. Not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because that kind of quiet confidence is naturally magnetic. It doesn't have to announce itself. It doesn't need anyone's permission. It just moves with purpose. And purpose has a gravity all its own. This is why the timing had to be exactly what it was. Every setback, every false start, every moment you almost gave up, but somehow didn't. None of that was punishment. It was necessary. Yeah, uncomfortable to know that, but it was necessary. You needed to learn what you learned in exactly that order. You needed to fail in exactly the way you failed, because that's the only version of the lesson that actually sticks. If it had come easier, you wouldn't have built the strength required to hold onto it. So If you are watching this and if it's different than the last 10 videos you scrolled past, pay close attention, because readiness was never about having every answer lined up in advance. It's about finally being willing to figure the rest out while you're already moving. Something interesting about real readiness. It really feels the way people imagine it will. There is no orchestra swelling in the background, no single dramatic thunderclap moment where suddenly everything clicks perfectly into place. Most of the time, readiness feels like surrender. Not giving up, that's completely different, but letting go of the version of you that was gripping so tightly to old patterns just to feel some illusion of control. It's that quiet moment where you finally stop fighting the current and start moving with it instead of against it. And the people who've been watching you struggle this whole time, some of them are going to notice this shift in you before you even fully notice it in yourself. They are going to see you making different choices, setting boundaries you never used to set, responding to chaos with a calm that genuinely wasn't there a year ago. And some of them will not like it, honestly, because your growth is going to quietly confront their comfort with staying exactly where they are. Your willingness to evolve is going to make some people uncomfortable with their own unwillingness to do the same. But that discomfort isn't your responsibility to manage anymore. Because when you are truly ready, you stop shrinking to make other people comfortable. You stop apologizing for finally becoming who you were always meant to be. And that's not selfishness. No, that's not your job. That's not selfishness. That's not arrogant. It's actually the opposite. You cannot fully show up for the people you love if you are not willing to love yourself enough to keep changing. So here's what I really want you to walk away with. This is not about waiting for one more sign, one more confirmation, one more perfect set of conditions before you move. The sign already happened. It's the fact that you are here right now, listening to this at this exact moment, exact point in your life, when a year ago, 6 months ago, maybe even a few weeks ago, this wouldn't have landed the same way. Something in you is different now. And different is exactly what was required for this door to open. Your moment isn't next year. It isn't when you feel more confident, or when the circumstances line up perfectly, or when you've mapped out every single detail. Your moment is now. Because people who are truly ready don't sit around waiting for perfect timing. They make timing perfect simply by choosing finally to move. And that's what this really is. Not a countdown to something far away, not a promise for someday. It's an announcement right now in this exact moment that the waiting is over and the becoming has already started. You already know what you need to do next. You've known for a while, honestly, longer than you'd probably like to admit. That quiet voice you've been drowning out with distraction, with busyness, with endless scrolling and endless research and endless not yet. That voice is still there, and it's only getting harder to ignore because readiness doesn't come with a map or a guarantee. It just comes with clarity. And if you have made it this far, even if even one sentence in all of this reached something real inside you, then the question isn't whether you're ready anymore. That question already answered itself the moment you started to hear this all the way through. Because readiness without movement is just another form of waiting, dressed up to look like progress. And you have done enough waiting. The version of you that's been quietly knocking patiently at the edge of your own awareness. They are not going anywhere, but life keeps moving whether you step forward or not. You can either step into who you actually are, who you are actually meant to become, or you can keep watching from the sidelines while time keeps doing what time always does regardless of your permissions. So, if any part of this hit you differently than you expected, if something in your chest tightened up or your eyes stung a little, or you felt that strange mix of being seen and being called out at the same time, that's not an accident. And it's not just clever writing. That's confirmation, landing exactly where it needed to land. Something big is coming. And it's not coming later. It's already in motion. You didn't stumble onto this by chance. You were led here, right on time, because you are finally, actually completely ready. And everything about your life from this point forward has no choice but to start looking different, because the person walking through it is no longer the same person who needed to shrink to survive. The door is open. The path in front of you is clear enough to take the next step, even if it's not clear enough to see the whole road yet. And that's fine. Yeah, that's fine, because you were never required to see the whole road. Only the next step. So take it. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel more prepared. Not when the timing seems more convenient. Right now, at this exact moment. Because you already know, deep down underneath every excuse you've ever used, that you are finally, truly, completely ready. So, welcome to you now. The moment everything changes for the better.